Okay, so welcome everyone. I shall be your host for today. I'm the head of demand generation at PPC Protect, and joining us today is Rand Fishkin, CEO and co-founder at SparkToro. We have Nick Handley, the performance marketing director at Rise at Seven. We have Anua Dekbola, the founder of PPC Chat Podcast. And we also have our very own CEO and co-founder, Neil Andrew. So shall we start with some very quick intros? Anu, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'm someone who's been in paid search for a long time. That's my bread and butter. So yeah, that's where PPC comes from. It stands for pay per click for any newbies on the call. And yeah, it really started off like I like working in Excel, Microsoft Excel, and with paid search, it's a lot of data analysis. And literally was the interview went like, yeah, do you like Excel? I was like, you're gonna pay me to play in Excel all day? Sure, sure. Let's sign the dotted line before you change your mind. And yeah, it's been going on from there. I've seen the industry evolve a lot from when it was just like basic, the person with the most money, got the top position, to it being a lot more complicated now, a lot more interesting. And yeah, I love, especially over the past couple of years, especially during the COVID years, infamous COVID years, I really got very much more involved with chatting about paid search with the community online, and we'd have weekly chats, and it's called PPC chat. If you're on the handle PPC chat, you're part of the chat every Tuesday. And some people would miss it and be disappointed they'd missed it, and I was like, I like talking. So maybe I'll just do a little recap of this chat that's just happened and throw it out as a podcast. And that became like my vehicle as well to share my opinion, share my ideas, share different projects that I'm doing. I just got like, I started getting loads of ideas about things I wanted to do in terms of the community. I'm very passionate about just the education of it, doing it well, knowing which channels are, knowing how to deal with the different platforms and not necessarily trust everything Google or Facebook and all these guys are saying, but take everything with a pinch of salt, and knowing how to test and keeping an open mind on how to do things. I now work with a company called Marin Software, a tech company. I've known them for years. They do great stuff. And I actually call myself the Chief Happiness Officer, genuinely, because I'm there to make sure they're using it right. And my passion is paid search. I'm not about just spend as much money, spend everything on this tech tool because, it's the bee's knees. I'm about what will work for you, what will work to make sure that you feel that we're doing a good job for you and that you're growing and doing better. So yeah, that's a bit about my professional background. I like motorcycling. I saw that as the image. Yeah, I say that and people go, wait, what? That's my interesting fact. I like motorcycling. I love singing. I'm got a great church community, and yeah, I love my life. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Anu. And I heard rumors of a certain event happening in London.
Yes. Part of my real desire to really, have, the people who are doing amazing work in paid search, who have amazing thought ideas about how to do it well. I just felt that there was a gap, especially in the UK. There are loads of US conferences that I've seen. And then in the UK, there are loads of SEO conferences. Now, I love the SEO community. Some of my best friends are SEO folk. I follow a lot of SEO folk on Twitter and LinkedIn and the like. But I was like, where is the PPC conference? The last paid search conference I talked at was at a conference called Brighton SEO. And I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. Why am I talking paid search at an SEO conference? So I was like, maybe there's space. And, there can be loads of high expenses, especially for juniors, people starting out. They see a conference that costs 500, 600 pounds, and they'll be like, okay, next. Or if they can find a speaker, they can be a speaker, that's your in, right? So I was like, let's do something nice and affordable in the like a £10 mark. I've got fantastic, great connections. I've already got speakers for like 3 events. It's going to be like a small after work meetup thing. And I was like, let's bring people together. Let the UK people come out and feel that they've got somewhere to go, especially now we can meet in person again. That's opened up. So yeah, I'm excited for that for our community in the UK.
Yeah, I guess especially since we're kind of after that COVID hurdle, it's really nice to actually go and attend some in-person events. All right, thanks, Anu. Rand, do you want to go next?
Sure. I mean, mine is pretty short and sweet. I started a company called Moz back in the early 2000s. That company was initially consulting, SEO consulting, and then became an SEO software company. And I ran it for many years as CEO, and then stepped down, left a few years later, and started SparkToro with my co-founder Casey. And now we have Amanda Natividad on board. And so the three of us make software for marketers and researchers and boards of trade and economic development and persona builders, all sorts of folks who basically need audience research. So to be able to understand what people do on the web, we gather that through public social and web accounts that we aggregate, anonymize, and then make searchable so that you can see what podcasts chemical engineers in the UK listen to, or which hashtags are popular with fans of Dungeons and Dragons, or you can see, you can analyze your own social audience and see what demographics and behaviors that they have and which YouTube channels they subscribe to and websites they visit. And we think this data, while it's fairly simplistic, right? We're not doing any artificial intelligence or machine learning or anything super fancy. It's a real pain in the butt to grab yourself. And so we try and make it very easy and quick for anyone to get it. I also wrote a book called Lost and Founder, and I speak at a lot of events, although I no longer organize them. Actually, that's not entirely true. I just organized an event in Bologna for indie founders. I have a big anti-VC pro indie software and tech entrepreneurship bent, and that's obviously from my history of raising money and going the VC route with Moz, and then not feeling like that world is a little bit not ideal for many entrepreneurs, and hoping to open up other paths.
Yeah, thanks, Rand. Yeah, I've actually listened to a few podcasts on how you've launched and have grown SparkToro. So yeah, very impressive background there. Nick.
Cool. So similar to some of the other speakers, I am a massive paid head. I absolutely love it. Didn't actually start out in it. I started out as an analyst at a tyre company called Halfords in the UK, analysing tyre data, and fell into the paid side of things, essentially moving from analysing tyre data to how do we fit that with commercial modelling, and then put that into paid accounts, primarily Google, Bing, and search. From there, I've sort of like developed and launched an Amazon offering and a social offering at my prior agency, and led the team and did pretty much all the data and automation behind that, which was really cool and really good learning as well. And massively thankful to the founder to allow me to do that, which has landed me here at Rise at 7, which is a lovely independent search first agency. I'm the first PPC person or paid person that sits within this agency, which is really cool and actually quite a nice opportunity to sort of have and craft something. My big thing is making sure that paid channels speak really well with other channels. So how do we look at cannibalization of organic and paid? How do we understand competitivity, and how do we map that through to our organic ranking? How do we do that not just across search from primary search like Google and Bing? How do we do that across things like Amazon? And then how do we get even more complex with looking at things like social and starting to fill in those gaps? And as we're all aware, with privacy coming in on us ever so slightly more, I think it's quite crucial for channels to speak better together and have this sort of, as much as I hate the word, I'm going to use it, the omni-channel route of making sure that we look at the bigger marketing KPIs outside of just individual channels, but not lose sight of those and feed it data points pretty much all along the way. And the other thing is automation. Absolutely love automation. A lot of the work I did with TalkTalk, with the fantastic team at TalkTalk and my team at M6 a couple of years back, we essentially got rid of any, I suppose, signals from Google and fed it through a machine learning tool, and then understood how we can increase lifetime revenue and their value without losing the volume of their broadband sales. And yeah, that's a bit about me. Personal life, as probably see, I'm a massive hiker. Currently en route to try to do all P600 mountains in the UK, which is quite hard because there's a hell of a lot of them. But yeah, bit about me.
Wow, I was about to say that's very impressive. Yeah, you probably saving that for the summer.
I trek all year round. So come rain or shine, being from Yorkshire, pretty much walked a couple miles to school each day, and it was absolutely throwing it down pretty much all the time. I'm very much used to it.
Wow, all right. And lastly, we got Neil.
Hello, yes, so a bit about my background. I actually originally came from the SEO side of things, even though I'm now very much in the PPC side. Being completely honest, more in the black hat / grey hat SEO side of things, getting those rankings that maybe we shouldn't really be ranking at number 1 and number 2. Did that when I was all the way through high school into college, then got a job at AO.com on the paid search team, working the campaigns there. Decided that I absolutely despised Excel, unlike Anu, who I know is a big fan. I know shocked faces all around, so I'm pretty good at it, but absolutely hate it. And realized that actually working for other people wasn't really for me. I'm a bit too hot-headed, maybe is the word. I would rather run my own business in that sense. Went to do an agency. I was performance marketing lead at that agency, and then we had an issue on a lot of our campaigns with invalid activity, and that's sort of where the idea of PPC Protect was born from. It was in late 2016. Rolled that out into its own company from there, and we've scaled ever since. We have raised VC money. Apologies, Rand. I'm sure you have some strong opinions on that one. Actually, a lot of those opinions we probably share. Our investors are great, but I've heard a lot of horror stories, so maybe have a chat about that sometime. But yeah, that's sort of where we come from, where I am today. The wider team here, we've got paid search specialists, organic search specialists, cybersecurity specialists, and we sort of get all that expertise, bring it all together in the product that we're building and the service that we're giving out to clients. About me on a personal level, nothing really as exciting as anybody else, I don't think. I have 2 very cute ragdoll cats, which are basically my babies, and I am a huge F1 nerd. And beyond that, yeah, not a huge amount of interesting stuff, really.
I was about to say we're very indecisive whether we should go down the cat or the Formula One route. When we were
cats driving Formula 1 cars, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal for the next webinar creative. Gonna go with that. All right, so a little bit more about the session, the topic of today. So a very hot topic right now, which is privacy in the marketing world of today. So specifically touching on automation as well. So on top of the advertising world becoming a lot more private, advertising platforms being siloed, how do you see this moving forward, and what sort of role do you see automation playing? I guess I'll start with you, Neil.
That's a good question. I think automation, like Nick said, I know Nick, you're a huge sort of automation nerd in that sense, and you love it. I think it is the future of what we're doing. I think the problem is twofold. Automation becomes increasingly increasingly difficult when we don't have access to perhaps reliable third-party data. If we're talking about the crackdown on third-party cookies and so on, we have to rely on that first-party data. I think the other side is, like Anu kind of alluded to before, we can't take the insights that Google, Facebook, these types of platforms are providing through these automated recommendations at face value. It's becoming more opaque, I suppose, it is the way that I would describe it. We can't have as much control over campaigns, and every marketer loves control. Nobody likes having that taken away from them. I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges that we face. What the answer to that is, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know if anybody here does, but I think merging that, the first party data approach, feeding that into systems and having their automation run in a way that we can get those insights is going to be more and more important. I don't think the role of the paid search marketer or the performance marketer is going to become redundant. Like I know some people do have that sort of, oh, are they just going to automate us out? No, it's going to change. It's going to be more strategy focused. We're going to be less operational and more actually building like the vision of what we're working on. But I think that would definitely be my view on it. And if anyone else has anything that they'd like to share towards that.
Yeah, with that, I absolutely agree with everything you just said there. And I think like the whole idea of automation, what worries me is how people feel like it's like a one package fits all. It's do automation. And and sometimes I've even heard some of my clients that Google has said that, oh, you need to do automation and implement all recommendations. And I'm like, no. I'm a fan of automations, but some things will work, some things won't work. Some things will meet the needs of your brand, will meet the needs of your industry, will meet the needs of the size of your budgets. Some things will not, and it's the whole just one size fits all slapdash, just do automation across everything in terms of like keywords, ad copy, what you can see, what you cannot see is what annoys me. And right now I'm trying to put a piece together around just the idea of like whose fault is it in terms of the educational piece of how automation should work. Because yes, I do get some clients also being a bit naive, coming going, oh, I tried automation, it's not working, oh, automation is crap. And I'm like, wait, let's test a few things, let's see what you did, let's see what your profile looks like, let's see who you are, and see what part of automation will work. Also, automation is still very much in its infancy stage. I think people are also missing the point of that. It's going to evolve a lot, the same way that I said earlier on, paid search has evolved a lot. I feel automation still has a long way to go, and they're going to be continuous, brilliant minds working at the core of it, behind it, tweaking things, doing stuff. And what it's going to look like in a couple of years is going to be a lot better than where we are now. And I just think we just need to take it as what it is in terms of some things will work, some things won't work. But it doesn't mean that you just, stick your head in the sand and go, oh, automation is not good.
Yeah, I hugely agree with that. I think it's very much the old time test and learn like practice, essentially understand what works and what doesn't. I think a lot of people are quite apprehensive around automation because I see it as a car. The controls have changed, but you still know how to use a steering wheel. You can still drive. And it's, in my opinion, about now looking at how we feed the best quality data to automated systems and essentially allow it to learn off of that, instead of it just being, before you control a keyword, now you'd have to look at audience segmentation, you'd have to look at what, I suppose, like macro touch points you're looking at, and be able to feed it to get to the common goal of what the business's KPIs are, or your brand, and making sure that you essentially give the machine as much information as possible, and the richest information or data as possible to make it work. There are concerns with things like performance max. I think Neil touched on it as well, is that the insights that we're getting out of these automated solutions are nowhere near as good as they used to be. Where I used to be able to use Google Shopping and give procurement reports to people and match what is actually sold versus what is the search term. And ultimately, I feel that is being taken away from us ever so slightly. And it's something I'm not particularly comfortable with, because I do like that level of reporting. It's now trying to find, where do we get that reporting from and still provide that value, but also understand that Google, Facebook, TikTok, the rest of them are not slowing down in terms of automation, and that we're going to have to learn to adopt at some point. So I'd rather do it now and be a theoretical guinea pig than do it down the line and have my clients or brands I work with completely behind the curve in what we're trying to adopt and get with it. Still unsure on performance max from a Google product. It still doesn't sit fully right with me, but that's my own personal take.
Yep. And anything from your end on that, Rand?
Well, let's see. On the automation side, I don't spend much time inside of paid search or display or paid advertising in general, at least not at scale. But on the privacy side, I have somewhat cynical beliefs, which is I'm long-term optimistic. I think that digital marketers are incredibly smart and will figure these things out. But Google and Facebook and TikTok and all the other platforms have a very strong incentive to take credit for every possible conversion that they can, even if it is not incremental. And that means that I think this is actually a really good thing if you are a paid media specialist, because your side of the organization will look like, and Google and Facebook will make you look great, right? They will tell you, you're bringing in all the revenue. Oh my God, Nick, geez, you are crushing it, man. Look, organic is responsible for nothing. It's meaningless. Brand is meaningless. No. What matters is you, my friend, the paid search, paid media specialist. You're bringing it all in. And look at how well you're doing. If you just turned on a little more automation from us, if you just used a few more of our settings, we could get you even more revenue. And it'll look great because you're the only one who we will let report accurately from analytics as being responsible for any conversions. That is, I think it's totally misleading and untrue. And you can see, dozens or hundreds of examples of big and small companies that shut down or significantly scale back their paid spend, their performance spend, and see the same number of conversions and go, wait a minute, what's going on? And the fact is, Google and Facebook and all the rest are taking credit for a lot of transactions, a lot of sales that would have happened anyway. I think they're going to use privacy as they have been using privacy for the last 10 years as an excuse for why they only provide, paid analytics and not organic. And they're going to keep doing that. I don't know if you're, if you're paid in performance side, it's not particularly frustrating. It's sort of like, oh man, I look better and better. And those poor schlubs over in, organic and brand and PR and the rest of marketing, they don't look so good. But whether, I think this is a problem for CMOs and CEOs where their cost of customer acquisition is going to keep rising because Facebook and Google, they need those share prices to go up.
I'd actually, yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, stock graphs go up and to the right constantly, right? It's always about, next quarter, how are we going to beat last quarter? And you have to keep beating that revenue. And I think there's a really interesting article. We can pop it in the chat for people to read. It's a few years old now, but it's called Why Google Analytics is Ruining Marketing. And I'd say it's well worth a read because it's exactly what you're saying there. It's very much focused on, we look at the channels that over attribute and we assign success to them, but actually the success isn't in Facebook or isn't in Google. That's just a channel to deliver our strategy and our message. And if we look at companies like, I think Airbnb did this over the height of the pandemic, where they scaled back their paid search, was it 95% or entirely maybe, like hugely scaled it back. No change in revenue, because they have such strong brand identity, such strong organic and so on. So I think you're absolutely right.
Well, wait, Neil, is it because Airbnb has very strong brand identity, or is it because Google and Facebook were taking credit for hundreds of millions of dollars of conversions that would have happened anyway?
Or is it a mix of both? Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, I think if any paid marketer was to, list out or report out all the conversions and the revenue of those conversions reported by every channel they're advertising on, so Facebook, Google, TikTok, Pinterest, whatever, guarantee you the total revenue attribution is going to be higher than your actual revenue by, several factors probably. So I completely get what you're saying.
Well, I really love to...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I don't mean to malign or demean the work of paid marketers, because I think if for example we were on this call with the head of paid media for Airbnb, we'd be like, oh, that person is amazing, they're incredible at their job, they absolutely earned and deserve that position and do phenomenal work, and it doesn't matter how good you are, the incentives of both your organization and your organization's demands for attribution and analytics and the goals and incentives of the platforms are such that you cannot pull apart the you can't know how much paid, in my opinion, you can't know how much paid is contributing to incremental bottom line revenue until and unless you shut it off for a long time.
Yeah, very, very valid points. I think this also has to do with, well, most approaches of today in terms of measuring these channels in a siloed approach, where you're looking at, let's see, the performance on Facebook and compare that with the performance on Google and invest more in a channel that's performing better, but not measuring that, as Nick mentioned, as more of an omni-channel approach. But I really wanted to get, Nick, your opinion on this, because, I mean, you're deep into performance marketing, and I know Rise at Tiffin are also big in digital PR and other types of media. How do you measure success of, I suppose, paid media as part of this wider strategy?
It's a really interesting one. So prior to Rise, we used to measure it using econometric models, which was quite an interesting one, where we took pretty much every channel, put it through essentially an algorithm, and it's essentially told us what the value of each channel was. And then that would allow us to budget for our next quarter, our next promo period. But that, let's be honest, only works when you're working with huge brands that have the budget to have econometric models and econometrics in place. It's much harder when you're a smaller brand that's starting out. What we generally do is we look at different data touch points. So we look at attribution modeling. So I think a lot of clients, and this might be just some of the clients I work with, but there's been a big education piece even now around, using last click as a touch point, sort of how you give success to, I suppose, a conversion or a channel. What we do now is we look at essentially underpinning these cannibalization reports, especially across SEO and PR, because we can then measure, the impact of whether a link was valuable to its, SEO impact as well. And then we throw paid into that mix and understand the, I suppose, cannibalization being paid and SEO. And then we work out where can we, like Rand says, turn things off, essentially dial down our paid budget in certain areas and see if we still, generate the same amount of conversion and same amount of revenue from that. And that's how we're measuring at the moment. So we generally give clients a whole measurement of like, this is how well your brand is doing, and these are the different touch points we're reaching. And that'll be different micro conversions, whether that's an add to basket. We know that depending on the level of activity that you're running on, especially at social, some of it can be brand awareness. So it has very different, I suppose, different levels of KPIs. I feel like this is marketing 101 as well, to be completely honest, is that we have to think about this, but we're pulling that into a full report and being able to attribute to different channels using different attribution models that fit that business, and then look at things like LTV and other, I suppose, wider metrics that the company should care about. I don't have a solid answer for this one, Baron, but we're still working through it because it's forever changing. We don't think we've got a solid answer at the moment, but the plan is we will do. But right now, it's using that cross-channel attribution, mainly in GA, which is somewhat frustrating, but it's what most of our clients use. But yeah, ideally, I'd have a low-level econometric model that we can use across every client, but I don't think that is going to happen in my world at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been hearing a lot in multiple different podcasts that the success in paid performance has dropped significantly in the past 2 years or so, mainly with, aside from the space being a lot more competitive, it's, as you mentioned, these platforms are being siloed, and they're basically not getting away with hiding that data. It's becoming more apparent that you can live without PPC, so you don't need to be PPC dependent. But I knew I'd love to get your thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, I thought the whole idea of channels being siloed was something that we'd get out of years ago. It was something I was talking about when I started speaking about the evolution that was happening in 2002, and I'm like, are we still not sharing data with each other? Like, seriously? Like, why? And it's why, like, someone that looks at my CV, they would be like, I know what was wrong. I've moved around quite a bit. I started the agency and then I moved client side for the reason of genuinely, I was sick of the silos of agencies. You know, you work for a paid search agency, you know what's going on in paid search. They don't share your SEO data. They don't share any of the other channels that are going on. And I remember there was one client that was a little bit, we were able to open that door a little bit, and they'd share to us like other, like let's say outdoor campaigns that they were doing. And we'd see that whenever they do like a TV spot, they'd have a TV spot like the day after, we'd see volumes go up straight. And I was like, oh, wait, something's connected there. Like, what's going on? And so, yeah, I was like, no, I need to move brand side so that you can see all of this. And I think that's really important. And, you know, integrated strategy for me, I don't like omni-channel. The word I've always used is the integrated strategy, knowing where to put the money when. There have been times a client will come to me and be like, oh, we have more money, or, you know, we need to put more money in paid search. And I'll tell them, no, there's no room. You're going to be getting diminishing returns. I'm going to be throwing money in a campaign and you're not going to be getting any more money out of it. It's very important that we look at the full picture and realize that there's journeys to this. And even as much as paid search might take a lot of the credit, stop display for a second, stop outdoor for a second, see how that will affect paid search as well. That will drop. That will totally drop, because it's all about, you need to have awareness first. Someone needs to know your brand. Somebody needs to know. For someone who's inventors who come out with products that no one's ever heard of, they need to know that product exists, that solution exists, before they can now go, oh yeah, I've seen your brand, I actually want to buy it. So yeah, I feel that there's still a long way to go in terms of just, connecting those dots, the channels working together, because it helps a lot. As I've said, it helps a lot explain what's happening in paid search. There'll be times that you can look at your paid search data and you'd be like, I have no idea why the CPC has spiked. I did everything right. I've got all the ad copies in place. I've, bid strategy, all the settings are there. What's going on? And I will tell people in my team, look at the market, ask the marketing officer, ask your client, going, look, we've done our investigation. Have you done something? Somebody changing something on the site. Web, the people who look after the sites, they change something. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, conversion rate has dropped. Right? Revenue is dropped, and we are looking at all our PPC data. What's going on? It might just be that someone has messed up with the site, and if you don't have that conversations very well, like with all the teams, at the ultimate end, you want to improve the performance of the business, of the, you don't want longevity. As long as that business is in business, continues to grow, you will be within a job. So it doesn't make sense for you to try to undercut a different channel. It really doesn't make sense. It makes sense to make sure that you continue to try to grow for the business, not just for your channel.
Yeah, some really good points. Especially taking into consideration the website as an external factor. I think most people, when they look at advertising or any sort of performance marketing, they almost exclude one of the most important aspects, which is driving that traffic to your site. Yeah. And when you look at it, how many times do we actually make changes to the site across the year? Or things like testing a few landing pages to make sure that message is resonating. Yeah. Very often we do see people measuring the performance based on maybe a few changes on the platform, but then not take into consideration changes on the site, or even activities such as PR that could have been influencing additional traffic awareness, when all of a sudden there's been a drop in awareness. Or it could also be seasonal events, and you're putting all that weight onto a single channel performance.
And I'll even say especially SEO. SEO are always doing either changing the tech SEO side, or adding more content, or making content different, or changing internal linkings, or all that. If paid search doesn't know what the updates are going on, we can just see all our traffic, just our performance going up and down, and not understanding why. But if we understand the plan or root of what SEO are doing, we'd start seeing loads of correlations of what paid search is doing. It can only help our communication. It can only help.
on that as well, I'm going to do a shameless plug here that I'm not affiliated with, I promise, but a good friend of mine runs it. There's a platform called Content King that I highly recommend for anyone that works in paid search. You're nodding, so you're probably familiar with it.
I know content.
Yeah, so they can do all that tracking of, what changes have we made on the site, and I agree that is so important, it's so overlooked so often by the organic search teams. They'll make some tweaks, and then we see stats going all over the place and have no idea why. So, yeah, well worth looking into.
Yeah. So just moving on to a similar topic. I mean, we're talking about how these platforms are almost, using privacy as an excuse, but certain regulations, offer less room for them to get away with it. Mainly the shift from relying on first-party data. So first-party data is now seen as the pot of gold, for most businesses. How do you say, I suppose, in marketing in today's age and in the future as well, how can we best make use of that data? Nick, do you want to go first?
So there's a few examples. I think people also don't look at second party data like sharing with other companies as well, which is something we did a small trial with a company called Loop, which essentially do but work out where you're spending your money. Obviously the data is hashed and we're completely anonymized, but we fed that data back into, with our internal data and third party just to beef up our campaigns, primarily on Instagram and Facebook. So we've got created lookalikes from that, understand who that audience is and really ask that sort of data. On the first party data piece, I think if you're not feeding it back into your platforms and using it at the moment to sort of like give more, I suppose, more touch points within, automated systems. So, if you're using PMax or if you're using, anything like smart shopping, which it's on its way out. But either way, like if you're not putting that data back in there, you're sort of losing out to start with. I think the other thing is looking at how you can leverage that data for better bidding models as well. Like Alex, who was my former PPC manager, and I, when we were at TalkTalk, we essentially looked at that with the TalkTalk data science team of like what factors within, their first party data and within their customer data, were salient in terms of people having a longer retention span for, using their products. Was that, the product type? Was that the type of person? Was that, their location, product package? And feeding all that data back into, SA360, the Google management platform, and then being able to, give that to a TROAS bidding strategy and be able to understand how much we can pay per acquisition for the different products, and then what the the LTV was for those different products as well. So yeah, there's multiple ways you can use first party data. I generally see, if you're going to start out, always just throw as much as you can back into each platform and make sure it's segmented well. We need to segment, but don't segment too much, or else you don't have enough data to allow machine learning to optimize on as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear some other people's thoughts on this. I think it's such a big topic of how you can use it, and I'm sure people use it in very different ways for what I have as well.
Yep. Neil?
Yeah, I think the first point is actually using it. Like, so many people just don't even think about the first party data they have access to and sort of gold mine that they're sitting on. And also the realization that this third-party data and these third-party sources we have, they won't be around forever. They won't be around for much longer. And actually, if we're looking at this from perhaps less of a regulatory point of view, more of an ethical point of view, there's lots of sources out there that we probably shouldn't be using because maybe there's some gray areas. I know we can get away with that, we can get away with this, but people are becoming quite sick of their data being abused consistently. And I think it's something that more ethical brands out there need to have a consideration of. What third-party sources are we using? Do we actually genuinely have permission for these or not? Are they opt-in? Those sorts of things. There are some interesting sort of evolutions, I guess, in the space. I was speaking to someone today about Shopify audiences. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. I think it's only just come out past couple of days, which essentially allows like Shopify stores to share their audience data with other Shopify stores and target people based off that. So it's an interesting solution. It has privacy concerns as far as I can see, because who's the processor, who's the controller, have you given permission, have you not, and so on. But yeah, there are some interesting sort of solutions like that. I've seen brands sharing, Facebook pixel data when they probably shouldn't be sharing it and had permission to do it and things like that. So yeah, I think the first thing is understanding the implications of using that third-party data and actually starting to use first-party data. If you can get the basics on that right, then you're in a good place to move forward. But such a small percentage of people are even leveraging it at the moment that there's a long way to go, put it that way.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons though that I found that why people are not using it too well is that no one knows whose job it is. I'll even get some of our clients asking us, "Do you have this data?" And we're like, "Talk to your legal team. That is not, And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, but you are our tech tool." And I'm like, "No, guys, this is a legal new conundrum here." And and as much as we're paid search advertisers, we know that you should pull in your data. Obviously, the GDPR rules is like we shouldn't have access if it's your first party data and now we're seeing it. That's third party data for us, and there could just be loads of lines crossed. And so again, it's just one of those things of, I feel, better education and of maybe even new teams. Hey, this could be a new role. Everybody's saying that paid search is going to go away, and the role of the paid search, right? Learn how to upload data in the new in a very better regulatory way. And I think that's a bit of the problem of people, it not being taken up as much as possible. People know the data is there, people want to add it in there, but it's always somebody else's job, and nobody has figured out whose job it is to actually manage that.
You talking about uploading data, and just reminded me, I was talking to someone around a month ago around the topic of, what does it mean, this first party data, and what actually accounts to first party data, which is pretty much, your Google Analytics is first party data, any data that you collect yourself. And this friend of mine actually just purchased the data, off ZoomInfo, uploaded directly into Google Ads and said, "This is first party data, this is my data." And the reason why I'm mentioning this is just because it's the quality of the data as well. So when you're working with third-party data, if you look at the actual data points, this is data that's been collected without consent. There's a lot more trash in there that you cannot see because it's third-party. So you only see the surface of it. Whereas, if you have your own data, which has the highest intent, you can then segment and do pretty much everything you can. So I know, Nick, you mentioned focusing on intent a little bit more and using different channels. So that's interesting. And then Rand, I know with SparkToro, I'm also curious to know, how do you manage first party data with third party data on that platform as well?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know which numbered data we have. So maybe are we fourth party data? I think we might be fourth party data. In brief, what SparkToro does is crawls public social accounts. So we'd be like, "Oh, Leo, here's your Twitter account," and it links over to your website, and you have a link to your Facebook and your Instagram and your LinkedIn, and whatever data is public on those pages. So if Google can crawl it, right, SparkToro can crawl it, and then we'll collect that, anonymize it, so we don't say it's Leo, but then when you search for whatever it is, I want all heads of marketing at companies, or anybody with the keyword, VP of marketing or CMO or chemical engineer, right, in their bio across these networks. We'll be like, okay, we have 42,000 people who have VP of marketing in their bio. Here's what percentage of them subscribe to this podcast or follow this YouTube channel or follow this person on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or Reddit or whatever. That is the data that SparkToro provides, which is obviously, you could go get it yourself, right? If you just go to Twitter and you search for all these people and then you visit all their networks, you could download all that data yourself and build it yourself. It's kind of a pain. In fact, super pain in the butt. But, that is the type of data that SparkToro provides. Plenty of advertisers use it. So they essentially will go to SparkToro and they'll say, "Oh, okay, I know that my audience is, interior designers in Los Angeles. That's who I want to target." And so it'll be like, "Okay, well, here's data on 712 interior designers in Los Angeles." And then they'll go, "Oh, okay, cool. I see that they have these these topics that they talk about on their public social channels and these hashtags and these Facebook pages that they visit, I'm going to just plug that into my Facebook ads for some targeting, which is fine. I mean, I don't know how necessarily great that is. What I tend to use SparkToro for, and what I really help people use it for, is to say, if you are trying to reach the audience that you want to reach, these are the topics that they're talking about. These are the hashtags that you should probably use. These are the places that you should be present in. So if you can pitch yourself as a guest on that YouTube channel, I see that 17% of interior designers in Los Angeles are subscribed to that YouTube channel. Be a guest on that show. Like that will be transformative for your marketing. I don't know if you'll be able to attribute it. In fact, I guarantee you will not be able to attribute it. It will look like brand lift. It will be impossible to measure, and it will be some of the best marketing you can do. And I think those things are actually really well connected today, right? Essentially, much of the best marketing you can do is completely unmeasurable. I mean, SparkToro itself, like we dog food, right? We do this. Amanda and I do lots of, hey, look, I'm on somebody's show right now, in fact, right? And what do we essentially do? There's no way, if anybody goes to SparkToro and signs up for a free account or paid account, I will have no idea that it came from this show. It will be impossible for me to measure it. This show will look to me in my analytics like it was a waste of an hour. Obviously, it's not a waste of an hour. I love meeting you folks and spending time with you. And Anu, we have to chat more later after this. So,
Yeah.
but right. So like, but I do things and I believe in things from a marketing perspective that are serendipitous and unmeasurable. And I think that gives me a competitive advantage over people who require tracking, right? Who need to be able to prove their data out. So actually, this is a good question for the group. What numbered data is SparkToro? Are we first, second, third, fourth?
We need a lawyer on here to figure it out.
Yeah. Whose job is it to figure that out?
You know what? I'm just going to go with we are fifth data party.
No, I will add this. I think what you mentioned about, scraping publicly accessible information is, it's great. It's just quick to the point, being able to collect that data, make a quick decision on it. But I particularly love the quote, what you mentioned about some of the best marketing cannot be measured or attributable. And I think marketers nowadays need to be thinking, more in terms of strategy and less in terms of attribution. Because there's this sort of data obsession hurdle going on nowadays, where we're just constantly looking for not just ways of investing in channels that perform well, but excuses.
So Leo, I want to challenge you there, because I don't think it's marketers. I don't believe marketers are responsible for this. I think marketers are really freaking smart. I think marketers are the ones who know the value of serendipitous, hard to measure channels. I think it's executives. I think it's C-level teams and boards of directors and investors and people who are used to, over the past 15 years, seeing attribution, and so they want it. And they believe that they don't believe this, you're just trying to sell me on why you should go speak at this event. You just want to go to whatever, London and speak at some event. You just want to go to Brighton. You just want to go to New York. What I can't prove the value of that.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think that's the marketer. So I think that I like to place blame where it belongs.
We had this exact conversation in the office yesterday. So we've been talking to quite a lot of VCs and venture capitalists at the moment, and news on that in a couple of weeks, perhaps. But one of the ones particular I remember that we spoke to.
They're such delightful people who are, very kind and interested in your well-being.
So, some are, and so a minority are, and the ones that we've worked with are, and some of them are just the most toxic people you will ever meet. And I'll happily go on the record saying that. But we've had some, and one in particular I think of that we spoke to, who say, well, we like what you do, we see the traction, you're growing fast, we like how you do things, but we just don't feel that the metrics are repeatable enough. And it's like, just look at the growth, look at where we're at, look at what our customers say, look at the product we're building, and everything comes down to but if we put $15 million in here, we need to get $80 million back, and we can't model that exactly. And the conversation we were having yesterday was there's been this loss of gut feel with not just marketers, like executives as well, like you say, and sometimes things don't need to be data driven. Like we can find the data to support any answer that we want, right? We can literally answer anything with data, but sometimes doing something because you feel it's the right thing actually is the best way to do it. And that goes in paid search, it goes in display, programmatic, wherever, organic and everything. And nobody seems to focus on that anymore. Everything is, I'm a data-driven marketer, I'm a data-driven executive. You don't have to be. Not everybody has to be.
No, I'm sick and tired of seeing that on like some agency's website on their homepage, like, oh, data-driven. I'm like, sir, and what? Every paid search agency is data-driven. That's not a unique selling point. Get out of your website. And I think, and I will boost your ego here again, Rand, a little bit, because I genuinely think SparkToro, you guys are invaluable for everybody right now, because what people are missing is that it's the audience. Who's your people and where are they? Like, people have missed that in paid search. It's always about the clicks. It's somebody who clicked. Everybody just looks like 10,000 clicks. I want 50,000 clicks. Who clicked and why did they click? And, what do they want? What do they looking for? Intent, is really being missed out. And if you know where your audience is, so for some brands, TikTok will be great. For some brands, TikTok will be shy. It's not like, oh, TikTok is this new trend. And, look, we've got 1 billion users. Who are the users? There was such that amazing data point. TikTok's got 1 billion users now. Who are the users, though?
I have an amazing story on exactly this front that I think you're going to love. So this is 7 months ago. Amanda and Casey are like, just having our normal day. And suddenly we start getting a flood. We get maybe like 3 or 4 customer service inquiries every day, because thank God SparkToro is pretty easy to use. So we don't have to do a whole lot of like customer service or support. But we start getting tons and tons of them. And then we go and look at our metrics, and we've had like, 500, 600 signups in the last few hours, and we're getting like tons of them. And we traced it back. I mean, we basically found this TikToker, like someone who with a large marketing audience on TikTok. She's very influential in sort of TikTok marketing universe, which is very different from Twitter or LinkedIn marketing universe. Probably very different from folks like us. Even when I go to TikTok, I'm looking for like funny videos of kids dancing with their cats, right? But in this case, right, it's sort of we look at, we're getting all the customer service requests, and it is just trash. I mean, most of them are basically curse words that are misspelled, like coming at us like, screw you, SparkToro, why you have my email now, like all this kind of stuff. And we kind of going, what is happening here? And we look, and the TikTok person had been viewed the video about SparkToro, which was a great video. Like she did a good job. It's like 60 seconds long, a little less, and explains SparkToro quickly, shows it off, has these like nice jump cuts, and sent us thousands and thousands of visitors, like 25,000 people who signed up real quick. And Casey had to block them. We had to stop new signups because essentially the people who were signing up were very bad customer fits for SparkToro, and they were sort of abusive people, like very insulting and abusive and aggressive and doing weird stuff with the platform and searching for not the right things. Like, even though the video did a good job explaining it, they clearly didn't understand it. And so we were like, wow, TikTok is not anywhere we should invest anytime soon. And that's probably a platform we should stay away from. But I have a cousin who runs a fashion store, like used and recycled fashion out of New York, and she does all these creative things. And TikTok is like a huge channel for her, right? And she does great with it. So you are absolutely right. You have to know your audience and who they are. And if you just focus on, can we get clicks? Can we get traffic from this place? Whew. I mean, I would never do that.
No. And I think that's what's going to generally, with people, if they focus more on their audience, you won't be too scared. You shouldn't be too scared of data privacy and all the data privacy going on. And if you want to prepare for, data privacy, taking all that data away, start using your first party data right now. Start really knowing who is the audience, what's the things that are working. what are the things that are not working, so that when you kind of have a bit of, the shutters come down in a few ways, you kind of still know who to go after, what platforms and what areas to go to that will work.
Well, one of the data points that I love seeing is I think this is, I'm not sure if it's first party or second party data, but you have an audience that visits your website, right, which has trackable events, et cetera, and signs up for your email list. You have data around that, but you also have people who follow you on social channels or subscribe to your YouTube or subscribe to your podcast, or they follow your LinkedIn group or whatever it is. And all that data is also yours. And I love being able to see, oh, okay, people who followed SparkToro on LinkedIn have these job titles. And they, they follow these hashtags, and they comment on these people's LinkedIn posts, and and all of that stuff, because then that's huge for my targeting from an organic perspective of what should I post on LinkedIn, where should I post it, when should I post it, with what hashtag should I post it, who should I ask to help amplify it and share it, who do I want, all those questions as an organic marketer, whatever you want to call that, social media marketing or PR or content marketing. That data is phenomenal, and LinkedIn has become a channel that rivals Twitter in terms of how much value it sends us. So, yeah, it's all about knowing your audience, knowing their intent. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the you mentioned the audiences, particularly on social media, followers behaving a certain way. What role do you see, let's say specifically, bot profiles, fake profiles playing on skewing that data? Do you ever see, I guess on SparkToro, and this is more of a question for everyone here, the quality of your data drop over the last few years with the increase of bots on the internet? So it's a very common stat that's been going around. So 40% of all users are bots, and we're seeing that percentage increase.
So I can speak from a SparkToro perspective. When we started, so before we launched SparkToro, we launched this thing called fake followers, which has become very popular. We got tons and tons of press in the last 2 weeks because a bunch of media outlets ran Elon Musk's profile through our fake followers tool. And then we're like, oh, Musk says he's going to get rid of bots, but half his followers are bots. Anyway, my take on it is there are probably some very sophisticated ones that can mask themselves as humans. I don't really worry about those too much, and it's really easy to spot the rest. So filtering them out is super simplistic, right? Like a bot, just for better or worse, right? A bot does not tend to have a profile picture and a name that matches up with the same name and profile picture on LinkedIn and Facebook, which verifies identities, of course, and they tend not to have Instagram profiles, and they tend to do things in very, oh, every hour on the hour they post something. Well, that's weird. Or, gosh, they always use this hashtag, or they have the same reply to someone, or, they're whatever, pushing, usually weird pro-Russian or Chinese sort of content over and over again. And the behaviors are just super easy to see, at least in the social media world. And, for whatever reason, I think Twitter wants MAUs, and so they don't, they have not historically filtered those out. But yeah, in terms of bot traffic to websites that's hiding or clicking fake clicks on paid search ads or those kinds of things, my sense was that was a bigger problem 5 or 10 years ago, and that technology has sort of caught up with catching a lot of that stuff, but I could be wrong. You guys would know more about that.
Yeah, I'll pass this on to Neil, shed some light.
Yeah, I think you're right on the social side. I don't know if you read the Facebook, is it transparency report? I think they call it. They remove about 15 billion bots a year. I mean, there's 7.8 billion people in the world. It's a bit insane. So I think.
Hey, we all need 3 Finstas.
True. So I think it's a growing problem, and I think that Facebook are, for all their criticisms and for all their problems, are probably at the lead of the fight against bot activity and disinformation online. I know it's a great channel to spread disinformation, but they do seem to be doing what they can, as opposed to someone like Twitter, who, like you say, MAUs is obviously the metric they're working towards, and they don't care if half or more of them are completely fake. We see in our data the general trends of web traffic that comes from malicious bots coming to websites and so on is increasing quite substantially year on year. Particularly on the financial incentive side, there are some strong financial incentives on things like display campaigns. It is a big one where the webmaster is taking a cut of the revenue. There's incentives on some social platforms as well. We can potentially go into more detail later today, but I think overall the level of malicious activity is increasing. The level of bot activity is increasing. And what we see from our side is that those platforms like Google, Microsoft, TikTok, and so on, aren't perhaps doing what they should do against that. I'm not going to sit here and say they do nothing, because they do make an effort. They just don't make enough of an effort. And I think some of that, maybe I'm slightly cynical, but some of that goes back to what we were saying earlier about, the stock chart always goes up and to the right. Well, if you start taking action against some of these activities and you start limiting your income from clicks or from impressions and so on, that stock chart isn't going to go up quite as much, as time goes on. So I think that the sort of goals are skewed, if you like, that it's not aligned with their users and their actual genuine user activity. They want it's aligned more with shareholders and profits. And maybe I'm cynical, but I would say that's my view on it. And the trends that we see in our data at least support that.
Look, I think we can all agree that what we have to do in order to solve this problem is end capitalism as we know it.
Funnily enough, for someone from a VC-backed company, I don't disagree. So we can talk about that
later. There's only one way to fix it, friends.
Oh yeah. I know, Nick, anything to add on to that? I know from your experience, in the paid world, have you ever, and this is more of a, it could be more of a gut feel. So I know Google is not necessarily saying that maybe 20% of your traffic is bots, but then when you start seeing certain metrics behave a certain way, does that ever raise suspicions, or how do you act upon it?
I'm going to say not particularly, but from running with PPC-Protect in the past, shameless plug, but we have worked together, I believe, on a few clients before. It is nice to see how much we are getting in terms of fraudulent clicks. It's something we'll be doing at Rise, hopefully partnering with you guys to bring in one of our lovely clients as well, just to understand and monitor, which would be really nice. It's something I don't necessarily worry about too much. I think every advertiser's up against it. Granted, I want to get the best out of the budget that we have, but it's something that I can't actively control unless I'm using third-party software like tools like you guys. But yeah, in terms of anomalies, I generally find it's caused by something else. Not going to lie, I generally can find a reason why we've seen, a spike in CPC or a spike in impressions or clicks or anything like that. There's generally a reason for it. I think much what I've discussed there, it's why we align things like, PR campaigns, why we, attach CTAs to above the line activities, so we can try and understand where that comes from and like what search terms are actually triggering when we look at organic reports and paid reports. But yeah, I think it's something I don't worry about too much, and hopefully won't have to worry about at all at some point soon when we partner back up and we have a Rise PPC-Protect partnership going on for our clients, which would be nice. Shameless plug again.
Yeah, similar to Nick, we don't necessarily have our clients worrying about that too much. I've had the odd, every once in a while you hear about, like, at the end of the month Google will give you credit back for some clicks that they knew that was bought. So I think they do that well enough, not to a point where clients don't worry about it. I don't, who knows whether there's a lot more that they're not picking up because they don't want to admit that they have that, that gap in their software. But it's not something that we worry about too much from my end.
Yeah, so I think it's reached a point that in the marketing world, it's almost the cost of doing business. So as long as you're seeing a return on ROI, or you're seeing the performance metrics that you want to see, which again could be skewed by other metrics, then people just keep on investing. All right, so we are nearing an hour here, and we do have to wrap up. So any additional questions, please email us at hello@PPC-Protect, and that could be anything in regards to the speakers, to the topics. I mean, we'll answer any of your biggest desires. All right. Well, see you all.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having us, Leo.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ella.